Hello, here's the situation. It is Feb 7, Monday, which means it's Feb and I haven't finished the book this year. I have read, but barely. It's also my second week back in school, and as far as the 4 classes I have goes, I have this amount of readings for 2 classes. This is 1 class, and this is for my other class, Bio Sci-Fi. This plus 𝙬𝙚𝙛𝙞𝙣. So I have to finish reading this by the end of the sem. So I guess the next few months will be full of sci-fi on this channel. So on top of these, on top of my other stack of readings, on top of what I'm gonna have to read for my 2 other classes, I also have 6 books that are technically currently reading, all within some sort of range of completion. This is 8% done, 14% done, 16% done, 19% done, 26% done, 32% done. So that's 6 books that I haven't finished, but I've started. And the kicker is, I want to start 2 more. The plan is to reduce this pile of 9 books to about 3. Honestly, I wish I could tell you that I had a plan, but really, I was just hoping that by the time I record, I'd have decided, but I haven't. It's just gotten harder. Let me flip through super quick.
2,000 years later.
So do I choose a short book that's almost done? Do I choose a book that I can finish in one sitting, whether or not it's long?
More moments later.
Or maybe I shouldn't even read a book. Or maybe I should read 𝙬𝙚𝙛𝙞𝙣. I don't...
One debt to society later.
Okay, I'll pick How Do You Live, because it's almost done. I will pick M is for Magic, because it's very, very short, and it's short stories, so with that momentum, it's really just gonna roll. And I will pick My Dark Vanessa. Yes, it's long. Yes, I haven't started it, except for like 8 pages, but I want to, and if it's between these 2, I already have a short book, so I'll pick this. The final 3 books I'm bringing today are these 3 books. I'm gonna get dressed, I'll get ready to leave, and go to the cafe, and study, and read, and panic. See you there.
M is for Mandel. M is for Miriam. M is for Megamind. M is for Martha. M is for Maniac. M is for Maniac. You're afraid of the truth.
So I'm back home and I thought I'd give you a quick update because I am now 5 or 6 stories through and I'm enjoying. If you're in a book slump, try short stories. It's a good kickstart. If you don't like the story, move on. If you like the story, great. I think everything I've read so far is a 4 out of 5 stars except for one which has no rating, which I'll get to that later. The first story is The Case of the 4 and 20 Blackbirds. This story is basically a Humpty Dumpty retelling, but add the detective spin to it and some noiry, cheesy line vibes.
And so another case had been solved. But one question still remains. Where do babies come from? Why won't anyone tell me?
That's the story you get. It's exactly what it sounds like, and it works better than you think. Completely unique, and I want more noiry stories now. The second story is called Troll Bridge, which, if you didn't know, contains a troll and a bridge. It gets surprisingly deep. It's somewhat of a coming-of-age story, but also more complex than that. You have this troll that represents different things depending on how you interpret it. There is also some questionable writing. This one line by the protagonist that goes, "I saw her chewing gum when I was 13, and I fell for her like a suicide from a bridge." That's definitely a choice of words, but as a whole package, yeah, still a solid 4 out of 5. The third story is Don't Ask Jack, and in 4 very short pages, it got me to be really unsettled about a Jack-in-the-Box. A Jack-in-the-Box that scares you not out of cheap jump scares, you know, popping out of the box. It creeps in really, really slowly. This is the one story so far that I haven't had a rating for, because I feel like there's more meaning to the story that I haven't fully understood. So for now, I'm leaving it unrated. The fourth story is How to Sell the Ponty Bridge. It's set in a fantasy setting. It's basically the story of a really good con. I love a good con, a good heist story. I love the Ocean series. I love Money Heist, even though I haven't watched the 5th season. I love Lupin. I'm always game for a good heist. I even loved Red Notice. I know some people didn't like it because objectively, it's very cheesy and not that good, but subjectively, it appealed to the inner child in me who played the Uncharted games back when I was younger. It just felt like candy. But yeah, anyway, this one, it begins with capturing well that voyeuristic feeling you have entering this world of thieves, being suddenly hit with all of these nicknames and terms and events that you don't know, but then you also just kinda roll with it because you know that you won't have to know or you don't need to know. Or even part of it that makes it fun is the mystery to it. It might make me rewatch the Ocean series for the nth time. And the last story I've read so far is October in the Chair, the 5th story. This story begins with personifying all the months in the year gathered around this campfire, and they're supposed to take turns telling a story, but in this case, it's October's turn to tell the story. And he tells an interesting story about this boy named Donald. His brother's called the Runt, and because of that, his family calls him the Runt. When his peers found out, people started calling him that, and so on. And eventually he tries to run away, where Donald also meets this boy in a cemetery that's dead, but not, but is. The ending is also kind of wild. What it implies feels very heavy, but I don't know if I'm just being pessimistic in my interpretation of the ending. And my interpretation also has to do with the story not being magical realism. I'll leave it at that. You know, I don't want to spoil too much. I am this much done, and I have this much to go. But before I continue reading, I am glistening with sweat because it's so hot today. I'm gonna go shower. See you in a bit. Okay, so I haven't finished the book. I am almost done, but I just came from class and I thought I'd share. It was a 3-hour class and I didn't hate it. It went well, actually. It was my positive psychology class, which is my major elective. I was kind of uneasy because it wasn't really my first choice, and I'm very wary of overly positive schools of thought. I'm also not a big fan of Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, wherein the focus is that the motivational force of an individual is to find meaning in life. And if a person has meaning, then they can withstand any suffering. And I don't agree with that school of thinking, but to be fair, if you read his book Man's Search for Meaning, wherein he describes all of his experiences during the Holocaust, I can see why that's his school of thinking, and it's very valid in his sense. But for this class was different. Instead of a victimology approach, it's more proactive. It's not about helping people survive, it's more about helping them thrive. And what we've discussed in class so far, I kind of vibe with it. I kind of like where it's going. It's making me optimistic, and I look forward to it. So that's 2 classes down of classes that I do like. The other 2 classes though, we'll see. But hey, I'll take 2 classes being good rather than none. But for now, I'm gonna eat because I woke up, went to class, and haven't eaten. So I'm gonna eat and then finish this, and time to wrap up MS for Magic. I still have a few more stories, so yeah, let's get started. The 6th story I have for you is Chivalry, and in this story we follow Mrs. Whittaker, a wholesome old lady.
Look at Spidey dancing.
Who goes to a thrift shop, or I guess second-hand shop, and she gets this grail. So she takes it home, cleans it, polishes it a bit, and the following day, this guy named 𝙙𝙚 shows up. And think of him as basically a fairy tale knight come to life. And along with him comes a lot of very strong fairy tale energy seeping into the world. And that's all I can say without spoiling it. It's fairly vanilla, it's okay, not too many surprises. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. The next story is The Price. If you like cats, I guess you'll like this story. It has cats, it's kind of Murakami core, cottagecore but not really, Christianity core, I don't know if you can call it that, quirky to say the least. A negotiable 3 out of 5. The next story is How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which was more interesting than you'd think. An element to Neil Gaiman's work is that, sure, even if he says it's for younger readers, there's something to his writing that appeals to a wide age range. It follows our protagonist N and his friend Vic when they're, I think, 15 years old or so. But it's told from the perspective of N 30 years later, so he's like 45. And I think it's actually a clever way of Neil Gaiman Gaiman, getting the character or the protagonist to connect more with the reader if it's an older reader. It starts off kind of problematic, but then it ends off very otherworldly. Our protagonist and his friend Vic come from all-boys schools, and they're going to this party. The first few pages kind of made me think it would be a fairly basic story, but then once he starts talking to people at the party, the people he's talking to are very different. Think Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter. Oh yeah, pretty much just Luna Lovegood energy. I don't know if I like it because it's good, or if I like it because the start made me lower my expectations and then I just enjoyed it by the end. Regardless, it wasn't bad, so 3 out of 5 stars. And finally, we come to our last story, Sunbird. And it's the second most lengthy short story here, clocking in a little shy of 40 pages. This story is very unhinged. Here you follow 5 people who are in a thing called the Epicurean Club. They meet every month to eat something unique, eat something they haven't eaten before. Things ranging from vulture, mole, guinea pig, giant panda, mammoth and Patagonian giant sloth, squid, giant squid, humongous squid, and so much more. This cast of 5 is also very unique and quirky, although my favorite from the beginning was Zebediah T. Crossell. Very eccentric, very odd, and I'm really glad Neil Gaiman gave us more time with these characters just to develop and simmer and enjoy their odd company. They're such a fan of eating. One of them says, I wish I was able to try man back in the 20s when it was still legally on the menu. So cannibalist energy if you've played Fallout New Vegas. Almost white glove society, but here they feel like they've eaten everything, that there's nothing left for them new to try out. So Zebediah, our boy Zebby here, tells them about the sunbird, and he knows exactly where it is, how to get them. They go look for the sunbird with the intention of eating it, obviously. And that's all I want to say for this story because I don't want to ruin just how unhinged this gets. So I'll leave it there. Even though I'd only rate it a 4 out of 5, it's definitely going up there with some of my favorite short stories of all time. Technically, there's also one more story after that, but the thing is, it's a short story that turned into a book, which is The Graveyard Book, also by him, and I enjoyed that book. I intend to reread that book, so I didn't bother reading the short story here. There's also a short poem, but I don't really know how to talk about poems. All I can say is that I liked it. It was okay. It didn't speak to me that much, and I won't rate it because I don't really feel like I have the knowledge or points of comparison to rate a poem. Unless you count Rupi Kaur and Langleaf, which, if you do, I don't judge you, but yeah. And I guess super lastly, I'll leave you with a quote from the introduction. Stories you read when you're the right age never quite leave you. You may forget who wrote them or what the story was called. Sometimes, you'll forget precisely what happened. But if a story touches you, it'll stay with you, haunting the places in your mind that you rarely ever visit. I like that quote very much. If you can see my copy, it's very battered, and that's because I got this when I was much younger. I never finished it because I just had such a hard time. I wasn't the right age to read this. One of the big hurdles I think was the vocab. Even as I read this now, there were a handful of words I didn't know, and if it weren't for the convenience of Google or dictionaries on your phone, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed this. Like, just the thought of trying to read this while pausing constantly to open up a big dictionary and looking for the word, it's just too cumbersome. In the same way, I think that's why I didn't get bored with this as I read this now. There's enough complexity in the vocab that me as a 21-year-old didn't feel bored. Compared to, say, How Do You Live, the other book I'm reading. That book, I'm liking it, but it's kind of basic. It's not tickling my mind enough. But more on that book in another video. So, what else to add? Yeah. I guess as a whole book, as a collection of short stories, I'd rate it 3.5 out of 5, or maybe like a little higher than 3.5 but not quite 4. Honestly, I'm too lazy to average all my ratings, but I'm growing a big fondness for Neil Gaiman, and even though the first half of this year is probably gonna be very sci-fi heavy, Neil Gaiman's definitely gonna be scattered throughout the year. That's it, I guess. Thank you for watching. Hope you stay safe, have a good day, and see you next time. Bye.
Look at this distinguished gentleman. Look at the way he is sitting. Yes, very distinguished. I see.